Hi there, I'm Dr. Chris Kempshall. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about how to access archives and find material on the Spanish flu. When you are searching archives, the important thing to remember is that catalogues are often written in a very particular language. Trying to crack that language is a big part of trying to understand and access the full range of material. So when you're searching for something like a particular search term like the Spanish flu, the important thing to do is to wrap it in speech marks. That will help the catalogue go through the various records to find the exact term that you're looking for, rather than every word or every example that includes the word Spain, or Spanish, or flu. However, those of you who already attempted to look for material on the Spanish flu may find that actually it seems like not an awful lot exists. Here on the left we have the East Sussex Record Office catalogue that suggests of their holdings only 4 items refer to the Spanish flu. On the right we have the Imperial War Museum's online catalogue that suggests of all of their holdings, particularly in their private papers, there are only 8 records that relate to the Spanish flu. Given that the Spanish flu was such an important event at the beginning of the 20th century, particularly in regards to the end of the First World War, how can this actually be possible? Well, to begin to understand it, we have to understand a little bit about where the term Spanish flu comes from. Spanish flu does not actually relate in any meaningful way to Spain. The disease didn't come from Spain, did not particularly resonate in Spain as opposed to other countries in Europe, but the most famous person who was suffering from Spanish flu in 1918 was the Spanish king, King Alfonso XIII. Spain was a neutral power during the First World War, which meant that newspapers in Britain, France, Germany, and America were free to print whatever they wanted about activities in Spain, whereas they were under more heavy restrictions in regards to what was happening in their own country. Therefore, the flu itself became associated with King Alfonso XIII while he suffered from it, and then when he recovered from it in 1918. In Britain, for example, the Defence of the Realm Act, or DORA as it's more popularly known, heavily restricted and censored what newspapers could print about anything going on in Britain during the wartime years. This meant that reports on, for example, a pandemic sweeping the country in 1918 would be heavily censored in a manner that a pandemic sweeping Spain would not. This means that the number of records or potential opportunities to directly see the impact of the Spanish flu might be restricted simply because it wasn't being reported in newspapers. However, there are important ways around some of these obstacles that can help us understand elements of the Spanish flu and see the echoes of where it would have been. The Spanish flu came in 3 main waves. The first wave was in summer 1918. The second and most deadly wave was in October to November of 1918, and that second wave claimed the most fatalities, particularly amongst those people who'd already been weakened by the first wave of summer 1918. And the third wave struck in January to February 1919. Now, these 3 waves also give us 3 key date spreads to maybe begin our research in, to begin picking apart moments and events during the outbreak of the Spanish flu. For example, if we look at a city like Brighton, in that second wave of October to November 1918, we can see the number of dead rising throughout October and then peaking in the middle of November. That week ending 19th of October beginning with 16 dead, and the week ending the 9th of November with 101 dead. If we take those date ranges and then, for example, look at some local newspapers, we begin to see some very interesting material within them. For example, these are 3 different adverts or newspaper articles, all drawn from the Hastings and St Leonard's Observer for the 19th of October 1918, so the beginning of that second wave. And what do we see? Somebody reporting about a bronchial catarrh treatment, a restorative tonic and flesh builder, and a particular ointment, all of which are designed to increase the health. Why would newspapers be printing adverts at this particular time for products that in some way increase the health of their readers, while at the same time not necessarily going in depth as to the full effects of a pandemic that was sweeping the country at the time? Here we see the echoes, the shadow of Spanish flu as we touch around the edges of it. The newspapers may have an absence of in-depth material about it, but the wider in-between-the-lines material can tell us an awful lot. This means that do not be afraid of looking in newspaper holdings. We now have date ranges for periods of time when we could begin to pick through the newspapers. What are people writing in their letters pages? What type of adverts are appearing? What are the wider themes of these newspaper reports during these time periods? Even if they don't mention the flu explicitly, they may mention the edges of it, and you begin to understand how it may be impacting local and national life. This also carries true for looking at wider personal accounts. A diary may not contain a heading titled Spanish flu, but a wartime diary written that includes the second wave of October to November 1918 will probably mention it in some way, shape or form. It doesn't have to be on the front cover to necessarily be within the content. So when doing archival research for things like the Spanish flu, be prepared to read around the edges. Thank you very much.